Tell you about the Duke of Sussex. He says he and Meghan plan to have 2 children at the most to limit their impact on the environment. Their plans were revealed in an interview with the conservationist Jane Goodall for Vogue magazine, which was guest edited this month by his wife. Meanwhile, the activist Greta Thunberg has announced that she'll be sailing rather than flying to New York for the UN Climate Change Summit in September. So, do we all need to make drastic lifestyle changes to combat global warming? Joining us to discuss that in more detail is James Woudhuysen, who is a Professor of Forecasting and Innovation, and Claire Farrell, who is a spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion. Hello to you both. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme this afternoon. Jill, to you first of all. Do we need to change and change quickly?
Well, I think the...
Oh, I think I said Jane. Sorry, let Jane come in to start. Jill come in to start with, forgive me.
Oh, sorry, my name's Claire.
I do beg your pardon, Claire. Completely my mistake. Should we start again? Claire, to you first of all.
Well, I think the time for personal lifestyle changes alone to deal with this problem is totally over. It's a lie to believe that you can change the course that we're on by shopping differently or just by insulating your home or not flying. Of course, all those things need to happen, but we need massive systemic change, and I think that also has to happen on an international cooperative level. So we're looking at massive changes, not just personal lifestyle choice.
And we've definitely got James here, I can see. James, what would you say in response to that?
Well, I agree. It depends what kind of systemic change you're thinking of.
Well, for me personally, of course, as Extinction Rebellion representative, I think that we need massive political change. It seems clear to us, I believe, that the system as it stands can't make the radical changes that are necessary. We've seen 30 years of inaction. We've seen carbon emissions go up. They'll go up again this year. They're not even flat. They're not even coming down. Add that with biodiversity loss. I mean, we are in a critical moment for humankind. So it has to happen on a political and a massive social change level.
Go on, James.
Well, I still agree. I think the political change I would like to see is not in terms of personal lifestyle, as Claire rightly observes. It's to do with us adopting a real industrial strategy, which I'm afraid May's government never acted upon. They made some rhetoric to advance all kinds of means of reducing emissions, beginning with the energy supply, and to make sure that we're able to adapt properly to the kind of floods that we've seen in Yorkshire today. So it seems to me that technological solutions at a societal level are the most important things, and I fear the current political parties, certainly Labour and the Conservatives and the Lib Dems, just are not entertaining that.
But I'm guessing, Claire, that you would also say that we do need to take some responsibility on a personal level as well?
Well, yeah, and that's why the Extinction Rebellion movement exists, because people have decided that it's time for a social movement that is capable of pushing the change that's required, because it's quite obvious to us that collaboratively business and government just aren't going to cut it. There isn't anybody that you can vote for in this country at the moment who you can expect to win out of the 2 major parties, let's say, that would make the big enough and the quick enough changes to really avert the catastrophe that we face. And let's not forget that the British Isles have a huge responsibility with their sort of historic influence over the industrial society, which is causing this problem.
You're talking about the Industrial Revolution, James. You're not sure about that?
Well, I am surprised that how much environmentalist opinion upholds British excellence as an example for the world to follow. I find it nationalistic, patriotic, myopic, and very foolish. And I think it's of a piece with... and I think we should move to this, if I may, Kay, although you're in charge. It's of a piece with the uncritical adulation that many environmentalists have offered to this disturbing policy of Prince Harry and Vogue and Meghan to lower parenthood and to lower the number of children that everybody has. I think that's peremptory. I think it's an insult, in fact, to those who want to have children, those who've had children, those who are about to have children. And like many things that environmentalism espouses, it's principally directed against the developing world, where, of course, family sizes are much larger. I think that's way too much, a bridge too far, to demand of people that they stop having children. I've never heard such a negative and reactionary point of view, and I'm very sad that environmentalists appear to be endorsing it.
A couple of things to talk about there, but Claire, I'm sorry, maybe misinterpreted what you were saying. Were you not being critical of the Industrial Revolution previously? Is that not what you were saying?
I was, precisely, and it is that moment in history which has changed the course that we're on as a planet, and that began here. So that's something that we think is important to recognise in terms of intergenerational equity and international equity. But also I would like to say that there are no environmentalists that I've met who are advocating for people to stop having children in the name of averting climate disaster. What people are doing in the birth strike movement, however, is saying that they are not willing to procreate until they feel that the future will be safe for their children. And I think for women to take a political choice around parenthood is absolutely their right. They're not telling anybody else what to do, but they are hoping, and I'm a member of that community as well, that will strike a chord in the hearts of people to help them to understand the severity of the situation. Because, you know, we anticipate there could be global food shortages within as little as 3 or 5 years in a worst case scenario. You know, multi-bread basket failure is what the experts call that. And the chances of that happening are going up and up and up now. So we have to admit that we're in this great risk, and trying to get people to wake up to that is what all these movements are about.
James? James, what would you say? Same response?
Well, I beg to differ. You know, I've got no personal quarrel with Harry and Meghan. I am a Republican, but I wish them well, and with their new baby and any babies to come. But I must differ, Claire. I'm quite confident that many environmentalists have said, and many feminists, in fact, have said that, you know, to have more than 2 children or to have any children is a danger to the planet. And I think what it underlines is how population, humanity, human beings are seen by green opinion as a problem in themselves. You know, it's 2 legs bad, 4 legs good. And I might add that the interview that Harry did with Jane Goodall, the primatologist, who is very widely quoted, suggesting that basically us humans are not that different from apes or chimps, monkeys generally. And I think that's demeaning for us, just as it's demeaning to suggest, and I'm afraid this is the tilt of the discussion at the moment, that people have fewer children. I think that's, you know, profoundly inhuman and a great mistake.
If I might say, I think it's rather demeaning that you're using other people's arguments and sort of insinuating that they're mine when I've just told you that they're not. We do think that human beings are a part of nature, and that's something that we need to recognise. We're part of a big system that operates all over the world. We have to understand our part in that system in order to be able to effectively change the course that we're on. And so that's all we would advocate for. I don't think that comparing us to other animals is demeaning. I think it's a recognition of the system of biodiversity, of which we are a part, and of which we are destroying very, very rapidly.
Well, it's not chimps that are causing climate change, is it, Claire? So, you know, we are different from animals, quite profoundly different, because we have technological means at our disposal. And it's those technological means, having created climate change, which I do not deny, that we must then go back to try to offset its effects, both through emissions reduction, through different forms of energy supply and so on, and through adaptation to the changes in climate that we're like to see over the next 10, 20 years. We don't face a catastrophe tomorrow. That's a complete exaggeration. What we do face is a great amount of ignorance about what technology could do to avert this serious and growing problem. So that's all that we need to do, to take, as you began by saying, to take the emphasis off individual lifestyle towards the politics of how to solve this climate change problem. And that politics must include new technologies of every sort to try to do something about it. And that Vogue interview is not about that.
I haven't actually read the interview. I have to say I've just seen all of the news that's come out around it. But I might just say that the IPCC and other leading bodies who are recognised as the most credible voices on climate do say that we're headed for a 3 to 4 degree warmer planet by the end of this century, which is absolutely catastrophic. And the Paris Agreement was written on carbon capture and storage technology, which at the time didn't even exist. So we are taking a massive risk. We do know that if we don't get something to work very, very quickly in terms of mitigation and adaptation, and then a form of probably quite deep adaptation required for society, that we are handing a really, really unpleasant future onto our children and our grandchildren. And I personally think that when you look at what's required in terms of international cooperation, you know, it's like when the fire alarm goes off, people don't move out of a building quickly if nobody else does. They look around and they don't base their decision on how to act on the data that they have. They base it on what other people are doing. So internationally, arguably, the first countries that step into the future take the vanguard forward and say we're going to address this seriously as if the facts are real, then they're the first people who could cause the shift in international policy and cooperation on this issue. So it is important that somebody goes first and that we find the courage to do that, because otherwise we're looking at an uninhabitable planet eventually. I mean, it might not be within 2 generations, it might be 3, we don't know, but we know where it's going.
Final thought, James?
Well, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has a number of models which are the subject of some dispute, but the catastrophe of which you speak, Claire, is, as you say, you know, perhaps 80 years away. And once again, you're suggesting that Britain take the lead, that we must be first, we must be daring, but that presupposes that lifestyle changes or more restricted parenthood are the way to fix it. In fact, what will happen is that more advanced technological nations than ourselves, America and China, already China, in fact, are taking the most aggressive routes to do the 2 things that we both agree on, which is adaptation and mitigation. So, you know, the idea that Britain must give a lead because we are, you know, looked to for all of these things, I think is wrong and rather insular, if I may. And I put it to you that you have not said that you would demand of other people that they restrict the number of children that they have. But other people do that on the green side of the fence. And I want to ask you, you know, do you endorse Prince Harry and his desire to only have a maximum of 2 children? What would you say to Africans who need maybe up to 7 children so that they can make something of their farm and actually plough the fields and all of those things? Are you saying that they are wrong to have 7 children?
We're out of time, but do answer that very quickly, Claire, if you would.
I would never say anything of the sort, and I think you know that you're pushing me on something which I'm just not interested in discussing. The thing that they've done by raising this question within the royal family, however, is talk about how some people who are extremely wealthy and do, by that nature, have an extremely high carbon footprint, you can guarantee, are deciding that they want to make a statement about the environment because they recognise that we're in a very serious moment in time where we have to make a choice about whether we're going to deal with this seriously or not.
Okay,
but making a statement won't fix it.
Okay,
you know, everybody wants to make a statement, but it's not good enough.
We're out of time, so we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and apologies, Claire, for getting your name wrong at the beginning. My profuse apologies. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Still to come on the programme.